shields are failing.
Scout ships clear the hole.
Hello, and welcome back to Marvelous Videos. Now, we know that the Stargate is packed with incredible alien species, from Goa'uld-like overlords, to horrifying monstrosities that would make even the bravest warrior think twice. Some of these extraterrestrial beings are cunning manipulators, while others are relentless predators that exist solely to hunt, consume, or dominate. These creatures prove time and time again that space is not a very friendly place. Today, in this countdown, we are diving deep into the Stargate franchise's most terrifying aliens. Brace yourself, because once you meet these creatures, you might never look at the stars the same way again. Oh, and before we get started, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the like button. Now, let's begin. The Ori, proof that even in space, religious fanatics can be a real headache. These guys started as Alterans, part of the same ancient species as the Ancients, but then a cosmic family feud split them apart. While the Ancients were all about science and progress, the Ori got really into fire and brimstone preaching, so much so that they tried to wipe out their science-loving siblings. The Ancients, not wanting a full-on intergalactic holy war, packed their bags and left for the Milky Way. The beef didn't end there, though. The Ori were fully ascended beings with godlike powers, and they still held a grudge. Deciding that being worshipped was the power boost they needed, they created the Origin religion, promising enlightenment to their followers, all while secretly keeping all the good stuff for themselves. Their human worshippers lived in medieval-like villages, ruled by administrators who had the charming habit of burning heretics alive. Prior, the Ori's creepy emissary spread their gospel, while the Dosi, their top preacher, acted as their mouthpiece. Despite their immense power, the Ori still feared the Ancients, who remained stronger. However, with each new worshipper, the Ori were closing the gap. The Ancients, firm believers in free will, refused to interfere, even when the Ori started steamrolling entire civilizations that refused to kneel. Yeah, they're not exactly the best cosmic referee. Ori technology was just as over the top as their beliefs, blending biological and mechanical wonders to wow and terrify the masses. Anything from their pre-ascension days was destroyed. After all, nothing shatters divine credibility like proof that you were once just another mortal with cool gadgets.
In the meantime, you should be focusing on the data.
I'm not getting anywhere with that.
Sekkari. The Sekkari were an ancient species with a solid game plan for cheating extinction. Literally, these guys were silicone-based life forms, and the only ones of their kind in both the Pegasus and the Milky Way galaxies. When they realized their civilization was on the verge of collapsing, they didn't just accept their fate. Nope. They built 50 high-tech seed carriers, each packed with the blueprint for their species' rebirth, a treasure trove of knowledge, and an AI caretaker to guide their future descendants. Basically, they created a backup plan for their entire race. Smart, aren't they? Unfortunately, things didn't go as planned. One of these carriers crash-landed on a random ocean floor beneath Atlantis and sat there for 2,000 years, waiting for something to wake it up. Then came along Dr. Rodney McKay, while joyriding in a puddle jumper during a skirmish, accidentally tripped the carrier's sensors. Whoops. Over the next few weeks, it started leaking radiation and reaching out to Atlantis personnel in the weirdest way possible by causing hallucinations tailored to their biggest fears, egos, and personal desire. Talk about a dramatic way to introduce yourself. When the team finally got the full story from the AI, they realized that accessing the Sekkari database would mean gaining invaluable knowledge, but it would also destroy the last chance for their species to be reborn. In a rare moment of self-restraint, McKay and the crew chose to send the seed carrier off to a suitable planet instead. The Apollo beamed it up and sent it on its way, giving the Sekkari one final shot at survival. The Sekkari's tech remains a mystery, but what's clear is that their AI game was next level. Their ability to project vision, scan minds, and guide the rebirth of a species puts most civilizations to shame. Rogue Asgard. Vanir. If you thought the Asgard were all about wisdom, ethics, and politely declining your calls for help, think again. The Vanir, a rogue faction of Asgard, took one look at their genetic crisis and decided they were going full mad scientist. 10,000 years ago, they packed their bags, left the Othala galaxy, and set up shop in Pegasus without the pesky moral oversight of the Asgard High Council. Timing-wise, they lucked out, or so they thought. The Lanteans and Wraith were busy wrecking each other, giving the Vanir a perfect opportunity to work in peace. Unexpectedly, the Wraith won. Atlantis went back to the Milky Way, and suddenly, the Vanir were next on the menu. With their intergalactic ships destroyed and no way to flee, they did what any logical race would do. They hid on a planet with a toxic atmosphere that only they could survive in. The Wraith weren't interested in gas masks, so it worked for a while. Of course, nothing lasts forever, especially when you live in a toxic homeworld. I mean, you have to come to terms with the fact that the place you chose was not exactly ideal in the long run. Forced to return to the galaxy, they find an ancient superweapon, the Atero device. This nifty piece of tech promised to obliterate Wraith ships trying to enter hyperspace. The problem was that it also caused Stargates to explode. Collateral. Who cares, right? Oh, and their tech? Crazy advanced. They've got sleek exosuits, tougher than anything the Wraith have seen, hyperspace ships that can slip past ancient shields, and a cloning technique that's slightly less doomed than their Milky Way cousins. The biggest scheme was trying to force an ascended Asgard back into mortal form so they could use her eggs to fix their species. Yep, they went there. Foothold alien. Something had gone terribly wrong at Stargate Command. Heightened security and a suspicious chemical spill, and before anyone could question it, they were all sedated. In reality, an unknown alien species had infiltrated the base, using advanced technology to disguise themselves as SGC personnel. Yep, you guessed it, they were the Foothold alien. These creatures didn't just mimic appearances, they stole identity. A small, mysterious device allowed them to copy the exact look at their target, while also linking to their thought, making them nearly indistinguishable from the real thing. With key figures replaced, the aliens had begun laying the groundwork for a full-scale invasion of Earth. What a fun group, huh? Well, they had nearly succeeded in their deception, but their disguise was not flawless. Unfortunately for them, a critical discovery exposed their true nature, unraveling their plans before they could take full control. With their cover blown, they scrambled to maintain their hold. Some managed to flee, vanishing through the Stargate before they could be stopped. Others, realizing escape was impossible, took drastic measures to avoid capture. When the crisis finally ended, the true scale of their infiltration became disturbingly clear. In the aftermath, new security measures were put in place to ensure they could never return. I doubt they can hold them off for too long. Replicator. Replicators are self-replicating machines from the Milky Way that just won't quit. Give them a pile of scrap, and they'll turn it into more of themselves, spreading like an intergalactic plague with an unhealthy obsession with upgrade. They were actually created as mere plaything by an android named Reese, who had the emotional maturity of a toddler, but the power of a mad scientist. When the people of her world got nervous about her little metal pets, she taught them to protect her. Big mistake. Once they got the hang of multiplying, things spiraled out of control. Reese lost command, her world got wrecked, and the replicators moved on. Structural, these things are made of replicator blocks, which snap together like Lego pieces. Except instead of building cute castles, they assemble deadly machine, wall, table, or even an entire planet's surface. Their favorite thing to do is upgrade stolen ships to be better, faster, and nearly indestructible. The Asgard, with their fancy energy weapons, struggled to counter them since the blocks just soaked up energy like cosmic sponges. Good old-fashioned Tari bullets work, sometimes. It was nothing against the more advanced human form replicator, though. Generally, they tend to avoid anything that wasn't a direct threat to them until a human form replicator shows up and gives the order. That's when things get really nasty. Adaptive, relentless, and with endless design variations, from spider, beetles, and fly. The replicators have one goal: replicate, evolve, and dominate. Unas. Unas are reptilian warriors who hail from P3X888, the same planet that spawned the parasitic Goa'uld. In a twist of cosmic irony, they were actually the first ever unlucky hosts before humans took over. Sorry, Unas. Opposable thumbs won that battle. The Goa'uld originally used them as walking tanks, marching them across the galaxy as slave soldiers. Once they realized humans were easier to patch up and had way better fine motor skills, the Unas got phased out. Well, mostly, because it turns out that some system lords still kept them around. One even used them as bounty hunters. That is, until one got taken down by SG-1. Tough luck, big guy. Now, don't let their primitive vibes fool you. The Unas are ridiculously strong, can travel huge distances without breaking a sweat, and have green blood. There's something about green blood that intrigues me. They are also pretty resistant to bullets, and not to mention, it takes some serious firepower to keep one down. Oh, and what if a Goa'uld takes over an Una's body? Well, it's game over. They become stronger, more durable, and can suddenly speak fluent English. Kind of impressive, not gonna lie. Then there's Shaka, the Unis MVP. What started as his kidnapping of Daniel Jackson turned into a full-blown bromance. Not only did he rebel against slavers, but he also helped negotiate peace between the Unis tribes and humans. See, even though they look kind of scary, they're not all too bad. Goa'uld. Meet the Goa'uld. If you could try to combine a clingy parasite with a god complex, you'll end up with the Goa'uld. Honestly, I think that's the best way I can describe them. These snake-like creatures hail from P3X888, and instead of just being creepy water dwellers, they decided they'd rather hijack people's bodies. Once inside, they wrap around the spinal cord, plug into the brain, and become instant evil dictators. Oh, and also, their eyes glow for maximum intimidation. Being genetic memory hoarders, every Goa'uld is born with the knowledge of their ancestors, which unfortunately includes a deep love for world domination. They started with the Unis, their first unlucky hosts. But once humans came into the picture, the Goa'uld traded up. Using stolen ancient tech, they built an empire by enslaving entire civilization, posing as gods, and throwing temper tantrums whenever someone defied. Power struggles were their favorite pastime. Atok started the whole conqueror thing, but his son Apep had serious daddy issues and offed him. Then came Anubis, who upped the ante by eating Apep raw. The self-appointed Supreme System Lord eventually took charge and kept the Goa'uld squabbling among themselves. Unfortunately, every empire falls. The Goa'uld had to rethink their whole gig when the Jaffa started a revolution. Some even tried to blend in. But let's be real, when your species is infamous for backstabbing, glowing eyes, and using kids as weapons, redemption is a hard sell. Wraith. Roaming the Pegasus galaxy, these pale, sharp-toothed nightmares don't just kill you, they'll feed on your very life force, and with style. Entire planets live in fear of them because every so often they wake up hungry and decide it's time for a little human buffet. Afterward, they snooze for centuries while their creepy babysitter, the Keepers, watch over them. So basically, a long time ago, the ancients brought humans to Pegasus and, without meaning to, created their worst nightmare. An Aratus bug, a nasty little critter that started snacking on humans, came to life. Over time, it became human-like, developing a bigger brain, walking on two legs, and deciding that dinner should scream. Eventually, they got smart enough to build spaceships and went to war with their creatures. Not exactly a thank you moment. Turns out the ancients had a hand in the creation, desperate for immortality. They experimented on 200 humans, and surprise, surprise, things went south real fast. The test subjects evolved, turned telepathic, escaped, and stole the only weapon that could stop them. The first 9 females became the Wraith Queen, while the males became their muscle-bound underlings. Wraith society is like a twisted version of an ant colony. Queens rule, soldiers fight, drones, well, they're just muscle with no brain. Most Wraiths are guys, with the women calling the shots. They have night vision, super strength, insane agility, and skin tones ranging from pale blue to eerie green. They drain life like sipping a milkshake, making their victims age in seconds. They even inject a special enzyme that keeps you alive longer, just so they can drag out the process. Oh, in case you're wondering, yes, they can put the life back, but only if they really like you. Now, while their tech isn't as flashy as the Ancients or Asgard's, it's still terrifying. They may be strong, but they're not invincible. The Hoffen drug poisons them. Some humans are immune to their feeding, and their ships guzzle energy like a broken down spaceship running on fumes. Their biggest weakness, I think, has to be their own overconfidence. Reetou. Imagine an advanced insectoid species that's completely invisible to the naked eye and immune to most weapons. Sounds like a sci-fi ninja dream team, right? Well, I will introduce you to Reetou from Reetou, a planet in the Milky Way. These guys exist, phased 180 degrees out of sync with regular reality, making them ghosts with an attitude. Now, you'd think an invisible species would just chill in the background, but nope. They managed to freak out even the Goa'uld. Hell, they decided to nuke Reetou just so they could reduce the Reetou population. They eventually succeeded, and only a handful of survivors were left. After the massacre, the Reetou split into 2 camps. The Central Authority folks wanted to fight back directly, but there were Reetou rebels. They decided to wipe out all the Goa'uld's future hosts, instead of stopping the Goa'uld. Yep, their brilliant plan was to wipe out all humans preemptively. Not exactly the feel-good revolution you'd hope for. Now, if you're thinking how you can even see these guys, don't you worry. There's a fancy flashlight known as a transphase eradication rod that makes them kinda visible. The Reetou themselves also carry multiphasic blasters, which light up when fired, so you know if you see random energy blasts coming out of thin air. Congratulations, you're probably under attack. The Shadow Entity. Picture being stuck in a jar for 10,000 years. Sounds awful, right? Unfortunately, we're not dealing with a Robin Williams genie situation here. The Shadow Entities are basically creatures that the ancients locked up in fancy containment vessels ages ago. Now, Whether they are actually intelligent is up for debate, though Dr. Rodney McKay once joked that chatting with a great white shark would probably be easy. Maybe, who knows? Nobody really knows much about this thing, but the clues suggest that the ancients were using it as part of their ongoing research into ascension. The creature itself looks eerily similar to the half-ascended version of Anubis, all oily, shadow, and generally giving off an extra-dimensional horror aura. This hints that it might have been trapped in the same weird nether realm as Anubis, which would explain why it didn't exactly strike up a conversation. There are actually two theories about its origin. Some think that the ancients may have tried, and failed, to ascent a lower life form, which left them with a sentient ink blot. Some think that the ancients found this thing lurking in the cosmos, decided it was interesting, and stuffed it into a high-tech jar to poke at for a few millennia. Who knows? Marvelous verdict. There you have it, 10 of the most terrifying alien species and creatures in Stargate. I hope we covered most, if not all of them. Now, we want to hear from you. Which of these alien horrors gave you the creeps? Are you more terrified of the Wraith's life-draining handshake? Or does the idea of a Goa'uld symbiote slithering into your brain keep you up at night? Maybe there's another Stargate creature that didn't make the list, but totally deserves a spot. Who would you like us to talk about next? Drop your thoughts down in the comment. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into galactic terror, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more Stargate content. Have a good one.